And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436. 580-KIDO. A couple things going on locally. First of all, this is the first day, and I know I'm excited about it. You're excited about it. For the first day, once again, of Win Kevin Miller's Cash. That's right. You can win up to $5,000. That's right, up to $5,000 simply by listening throughout the day. But since you wake up on the right side with us, we're going to tell you the times. And if you're a veteran of the Kevin Miller Show or KIDO Talk Radio, you know what I'm going to say. It's in the 6 o'clock hour, usually between 6:04 and 6:10. The 8 o'clock hour, the same. The 3 o'clock hour during the Sean Hannity Show, usually first thing off the bat, even before Sean comes on the air. So what you do is to win Kevin Miller's Cash on KIDO Talk Radio is you hear the words, and then you go to the website, you go to the Kevin Miller's Cash section, you type them in, and the more words you get, the greater your chances are of winning 5 G's, 5 simoleons. So our first word of the day, let me grab my pen, courtesy of Taped Credit Union, is car. That's right, car. The first word of the day is car. So we wish you luck and continued success. Usually, my friend Wendy at Fred Meyer always says, Kevin Miller, I really would like to hear more about your life. Well, most of these radio people, they talk a little bit about themselves, and we know you have dogs, we know you have this, you have that. But what about you personally? See, for me, the news of the day is worth talking about. But if you really must know what I do at night, I'm sitting there next to Mrs. Miller. We're watching the television. And she's going on and on about the Jussie Smollett situation. You might have heard Jeff Manasso earlier talking about it. So here you have a guy who police say made up everything, who was going to jail for a long time, and said that were a bunch of people wearing MAGA hats. They went after him because he's a minority, he's gay, he's black, he hates Donald Trump. And you had the media, led by ABC Television, by Robin Roberts, just putting this jabroni on, not challenging any of his story, even as the story was falling apart. And yes, my friends, I believe there are some good journalists. And there could be good journalists that are progressives and libs, right? But they stick to the story. One of the issues that I have with journalists today is they make themselves part of the story. Isn't that what you're doing, Kevin Miller? Not so fast, my friend. I'm getting to the story. So I'm watching the Jussie Smollett thing, and apparently Mr. Smollett has friends in high places. So instead of being prosecuted, he cuts a sweetheart deal with prosecutors, gets his charges dismissed, the record expunged. Now, again, this is the guy that said that bleach was poured on him, although his Subway sandwich wasn't harmed, that somebody put a noose around him, and they were wearing MAGA hats, right? Because at 2 a.m, there are gangs of radical people going around in the city of Chicago wearing MAGA hats. Another great reason never to leave the Treasure Valley. For some people, it works leaving the Treasure Valley, but the grass is not always greener. Bigger is not always better. So Smollett files these charges, and the cops, and this is what gives me hope in America. You have black cops, white cops, Asian cops, Hispanic cops. The color for the cops, the police, is blue. And they bust this guy. They charge him. They're ready to go. The grand jury indicts him. And because there's a connection with Obama, which I'll get to in a minute, the worst president ever, with Obama and his wife, Smollett pays $10,000. The records are expunged. The police reports are sealed because the cops are so mad, they start leaking it to the press. And the press is so bad that I'm watching NBC News last night, and their reporter, is it Pierre Pedro, the national guy that has been here a few times? Remember when we had the missionaries, I believe, that were held captive in Haiti? He was actually at the church there in 10 Mile, the Baptist church in 10 Mile. So Gabe Gutierrez, something like that. Anyway, solid reporter. And he's their go-to guy. So how he pronounces or writes the story at the end, he goes over factually what the police have said, leaves out crucial details, and then hits them with this. There could be federal charges against him, but like the other one, it's unraveling. No, it wasn't unraveling. This is something that we see, as Ray Amaya texted me yesterday, like a plot in a soap opera, like Empire or whomever. And it really destroys the argument that America has an issue with race. Now, Jussie Smollett has gotten out and said, I'm innocent, the cops are idiots, and hasn't learned his lesson. But if you're telling me a liberal, gay, African-American black man can do these charges, get caught doing these charges, and because he has big money, gets off, that destroys the argument that America is a racist country. Because if truly America were a racist country, as I've said before, and you've said this, we never would have elected Obama. We never would have had this issue involving Mr. Smollett, because Mr. Smollett would be jailed just based on his sexual orientation or his race. The charges would have been trumped up, but they weren't. So now the story continues to unravel, and this is why, as I want to say to you, as I want to share with you, there are good journalists in America today. They're few and far between. They're few and far between, and they do good work. You know, I look at Katie Moeller, and I had a chance recently to meet her. She's a bulldog reporter. Our friend Tommy Ahlquist with the Inspire Excellence podcast, we had her on. And I praised her work during the old Canyon County Animal Shelter that spurred us to go there to live there and spur the community to save that shelter, now known as the West Valley Humane Society. And it was her reporting, and she just shrugged it off. That's a great reporter. Cynthia Sewell, the same thing. Others, they have agendas. You don't have to agree with them. You know, like Betsy Russell. If you don't know who she is, she writes now for the press. She has an agenda. Very simply. She has an agenda. Now, she can say she's objective, and the Idaho Press Association can say that they're all objective, but when it comes to politics, it isn't. So here we have this case of Jussie Smollett, where we have a new revelation reveals that a former Obama chief of staff under the First Lady was in contact with the prosecutor who recused herself from the investigation. So the deputy, the junior prosecutor, cut this deal. There's no way the junior prosecutor cut this deal. And then we have people saying, well, this happens to everybody. Look, go to our friends in Garden City or Nampa or Cuna or wherever and ask your friendly neighborhood police officer, hey, if I allegedly make up a bunch of phony charges about hate crimes, will I get a $10,000 fine, 2 days of community service? Or because I'm not Jussie Smollett, will I get a $1,000 fine and 2 hours of community service? No, they're going to make an example of you. So let's get this big story from Fox News. And the point being, and look, I'll out myself, selfishly, I would like to keep doing this job. Selfishly, I would like to be with you. And people say, Kevin, you're always talking about getting fired. There are sinister forces at work seeking to destroy what we have here in the morning. Because they understand that get rid of Kevin Miller, you put in Jabroni Jim, and maybe he reads the news, maybe he does national politics, but the idea of getting the truth out, and we got something on our friend Mayor Beater coming up too, by the way. Thank you to our friend Dave Frazier at the Boise Guardian. But first, I want to share with you the Jussie Smollett case. Do we have this ready? Let's see if the Commodore 64 is working this morning.
Bombshell in the alleged hate crime hoax involving Empire actor Jussie Smollett, a Chicago's top prosecutor, dropping charges and sealing the case.
I've been truthful and consistent on every single level since day one.
Do I think justice was served? No. At the end of the day, it's Mr. Smollett who committed this hoax.
And listen to this. Some stunning text messages are emerging between Michelle Obama's former chief of staff, Tina Chin, and Cook County State's attorney, Kim Foxx. Now, according to the Chicago Sun-Times, Chen texted Fox saying the Smollett family had some concerns about the investigation. Well, hours later, an unidentified relative of Smollett reportedly texted Fox starting a relationship which eventually led to the attorney recusing herself from the investigation. Fox texting Smollett's relative, quote, spoke to the superintendent earlier. He's going to make the ask, trying to figure out logistics. I will keep you posted. Well, Smollett's relative replying in this way, OMG, this would be a huge victory. Fox responding then, I make no guarantees, but I am trying. And then Smollett's family member saying, I understand, I appreciate the effort. Well, the Sun-Times also revealing an email from Fox to Chen reading this, quote, spoke to Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson. I convinced him to reach out to FBI to ask that they take over the investigation. He is reaching out now and will get to me shortly. Well, Smollett has agreed to community service. He will not get his $10,000 bail back.
But he's innocent. Come on, friends and neighbors. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I sit here as we are driving in from Canyon County or Mountain Home or wherever. Maybe you're in the bed right now and you're looking around to see if I'm over your shoulder or Ray Amaya is in the other room. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, have we ever seen anything where the crooks have been caught? Have we ever seen anything where they have been caught red-handed with the text messages? Now, this is just a small little matter. Could you imagine what happens and what did happen during the Obama administration, right? Amazing. By the way, huge program today for you. We have Dr. Jerome Corsi joining us exclusively. He will tell you, Kevin Miller Militia, KIDO Talk Radio, what it was like when he got the news that Robert Mueller will not indict him. You remember Dr. Corsi told us exclusively that, hey, Mueller had him under surveillance. Mueller was going to take him down, and he feared for his family, his safety, and his financial stability. Dr. Corsi will join us. We have our friends from Judicial Watch joining us. And to top that off, an old friend, Eric McRush. He's getting ready to ship out. You remember Eric, the analyst, activist, the gentleman that introduced us to Greg Pruitt and the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance before there was one? Well, he's back in town. He's getting ready to leave for a naval deployment. He said, look, I'd love to stop in and say hi to everybody, and he'll do that as well. We've got a lot going on this morning at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So essentially it comes down to this. The president should be known as the disruptor-in-chief because he's outed the media. The media continues to go after these folks, supporting them. And you think to yourself, well, if we can't trust the media, then who do we trust? It comes down to, if you want to do the job right, you have to do it yourself. Now, coming up next, let me apologize in advance for saying something offensive. In my opinion, pretty soon, it's going to be illegal to be a white man in America. I'll give you the troubling details next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio time 6:22. Kurt in Boise. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Kurt.
Well, good morning, Kevin. Hey, first off, I just want to thank you for the wonderful show you have, man. The guests that call in and the people that participate are just outstanding.
Thank you, brother.
Yep, you bet. I don't know where to start with this Jussie Smollett thing. I mean, it's just so... I just don't know where to start. I mean, the connection to the Obamas, I mean, when you start talking about the Obamas, you just open a floodgate, but I just don't know. If it was a white guy, he'd be in prison, federal prison. No, don't even think about it. Boom, gone. This guy, we know he's guilty. The brothers, wasn't there two brothers that worked with him? They confessed. And now he's walking. I don't know where to start.
Well, I think it's the end of racism in America because Jussie Smollett is anti-Trump. He's gay. He's African-American. You would think that he couldn't get a fair trial in America, but certainly he got more than most, white or black, did in Chicago or could in Chicago.
Oh, especially in Chicago. You know, I mean, isn't Chicago like the murder capital of the world almost or something? I mean, That's why Ron Emanuel stepped down. He couldn't do nothing after all those years when he said he could save the city because that's where they're from. But that's another whole story in itself. Yeah, I mean, I agree with this. This is the perfect point to say it's the end of racism in America. Because if it was anybody else, they would go to federal prison.
And they should.
Federal prison. And they should. But these guys walk. It's unbelievable to me. I mean, if it wasn't for the Obamas, we would have never had Black Lives Matter, and then we wouldn't have all the cop killing. We wouldn't have all this. Just one thing after another, you know? It's unbelievable.
And, you know, they continue to get a pass. Her book is the number one bestseller everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, it's going to take years, and hopefully Trump will get reelected, to realize how bad it was under Obama. And then you take a look at the Obama factor involving not only the cops, but the cultural shift that happened under those 8 years.
Exactly, brother. Exactly. I mean, and that's what's so funny to me. When you start, these liberals, they don't understand that, you know, that they won't come after me, but they will come after them because it'll go so far to the left that the central, I mean, look at even how the Democratic Party's changing. They're going so far to the left, even the centralized, even the old, what did they call them, blue dog Democrats are gone.
Right.
And they're going to end up eating themselves. And there's going to be one guy left standing, or girl, or whoever, and they're going to look around and everybody else is gone. I just don't understand it.
Well, and we go back to what Obama did and the blatant discrimination against white males. We have this guy came out with the horror show that just Jordan Peele said yesterday, this isn't racism, but I wouldn't cast a white man as a lead in any of my films. Yep. Really? Yep. Really? Oh, okay. But that's not racism.
Right. Or even the Democrats, they don't even want a white guy in there as their candidate.
Oh, yeah. And the white guys are apologizing for being white.
I know. Can you believe that? Talk about white guilt, man. Unbelievable.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, brother.
Thank you, Kurt. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Appreciate Kurt joining us on KIDO Talk Radio. Our time is 6:26 with Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's get you to work safely and on time.
I'm News Channel 7's Eric Everett.
And here we go. Facebook announcing they're cracking down against white nationalism. Let's hope that they do the same against ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all the terrorists that threaten people's lives that they just kind of let run wild and free. Our big story here, the Jussie Smollett case, really doesn't impact us here in Idaho, but it does impact us nationally when you have Smollett running around saying that he was innocent, that the police bungled everything, that you have a former chief of staff to Michelle Obama influencing the prosecutor. At least it appears that way with the text messages. So once again, we should declare the end of racism in America, because here you have Smollett, who doesn't like Trump, African-American, gay, has these things. You know, if Smollett, here's something. If Smollett truly was innocent, why doesn't he double down on prosecuting his friends that he texted and paid $3,000 to stage the whole thing? If something happens to you or your children, don't you just say, boom, I want those people prosecuted, so I'm sure old Jesse will do that. Coming up after the news, thanks to the brilliant work of Dave Frazier of the Boise Guardian, he's uncovered the devious means of distribution for the Boise Kind Project. You remember we were talking about this, where the mayor gets on and says, be kind, be kind, be kind. And I said, look, this is just a strategy for Mayor Beater to run for re-election and to tamp down any criticism, because to criticize the ribbon cutter-in-chief is to be mean. Well, no, Mayor, you've got the highest taxes here. You have a lot of policies that people don't agree with, so much so that the legislature is passing a special bill to make sure that mayors, like Mayor Beater has done in the past, cannot use urban renewal funds for pet peccadillo projects. So we'll have that for you. And by the way, I'm not making this up. Joe Biden is apologizing for being a white man, for having white ideology. And he goes back He goes back to English common law to make his point. Now, I don't know about you, but we don't talk like the English did back in the 1700s. So why is he bringing it up? And we can't wake up angry. Or maybe that is your method while you're at the gym or on the treadmill or the elliptical. But this is just silly, devious little liberal shenanigans. I'll explain coming up next. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, with Kevin Miller in the morning. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
Thank you, Dave Ramsey. Don't forget Glenn Beck after this program and before Dave Ramsey. Joining us now, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News Radio, exclusively on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning.
Good morning.
So here we have this college admission scandal continues. I mean, this could be the Robert Mueller report of education, because you think about how many people could have been denied access to get the rich hoity-toity-toities, allegedly, their kids in at the expense of others. You could go back 20, 30 Heck, now I know why I didn't get into Harvard. It was John Malkovich's kids, allegedly. Tongue firmly in cheek on that one.
That's why you did not get into Harvard.
Never mind, I couldn't spell Harvard, but yeah. How my life would have been different, yes.
I love the correlation to the Mueller report there. I think there is a huge difference because we'll actually be able to see this one. we can Freedom of Information Act this stuff at least, which is pretty bad for a lot of these parents. I mean, when you're talking about something where $25 million in bribes was paid to this consultant guy, Rick Singer, from dozens of people to get their kids into these top colleges. They were recruited for sports they didn't play. The standardized test scores were rigged. I mean, the whole thing was it's just stunning, honestly. And now, in addition to the Department of Justice, who is, obviously bringing these charges against these people and investigating. Now you've got the U.S. Education Department that's looking into it. Now the schools themselves have not been targeted in the Department of Justice investigation, but now the U.S. Department of Education wants information from these schools, and they're asking 8 of them so far. They've been sent letters to the college presidents of Yale, Wake Forest, Stanford, Georgetown, University of San Diego, University of Texas at Austin, UCLA, and University of Southern California. And what they want are information, documents. They want admissions information. They want if documents were produced by a subpoena to other agencies. They want a list of employees and students mentioned in the criminal investigation. They want to know if the universities had to take any disciplinary action against any of those employees. They're asking for this data going back 10 years, and they've given them 30 days to comply.
Tanya J. Powers, here's a tribute to the value of marketing. That's what this story really is, the value of marketing educational institutions. And the reason why I say this is you could have given your kid $1 million, $2 million, $300,000, and they could have started a business. They could have had a private tutor. But because these parents, valued these degrees to such a high degree, allegedly doing these acts, that they spent all this money so they would have that college degree. And for a lot of folks that didn't go to college, went through the school of hard knocks, they always say, well, I should. No. How many people do you know that say to themselves, look, I just spent such and such amount on student loans and I didn't get a job, so you can have my degree back if I don't owe any money. There's a lot of frustration. So do you buy my point? This is the value of marketing these elite and some not so elite institutions.
Well, I can see your point. I think it says a lot about the Department of Education's investigation and looking into all of this, that if the schools have found to have committed substantial misrepresentation in this, they can actually have their access to federal student aid limited or revoked entirely, which is quite stunning and could have a lot of ramifications for a lot of people. If they end up doing that. You're
so focused on the story because I think I came the closest I've ever come to derailing you at the beginning of our little segment here. So you're just sticking to your guns here, and I'm thinking there are a lot of people though that they feel a degree, and I'm sure in this case was access to the bright lights, the big stars, whatever. And really, whether you have a degree or not, you've got to work. You've got to prove yourself day in and day out. And I just find it fascinating that you would spend allegedly $300,000, $25 million, whatever, the whole thing, just to get your kid in. And you're a public figure that they would lie about. I mean, it's like an episode of Entourage or Empire or whatever, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty stunning, but I mean, it kind of, I guess it goes to the fact that you have people who have a certain amount of, expectation. My kid is going to go to this college and we're going to make that happen, regardless of the fact that, my kid, that may not be the best fit for my kid to go to. This may not be what my child, really wants to do or where they really want to go. But sometimes it's just, okay, this is where you're going. Or the reverse of that. That my kid really wants to go to this college, but, this is not where they're not going to flourish here, but they don't know that yet. It's one of those kind of things where you're like, I don't know. I mean,
yeah. I just find it fascinating that, hey, you're going to get in. We're going to tell you you're on the rowing team. And what a cynical way to get your kid in to, we're going to say you're on the basketball team, or just the lengths that these alleged actors in this case went to get their kid into, let's say, San Diego State or the University of Texas, not even Vandy or Harvard or Yale or something of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, the range of schools, I mean, it just goes to show you that, this is not just the Ivy Leagues. This was everywhere. Well, not everywhere like every school, but it was across the country.
Not at Bama.
No, not that we've heard of at this point.
Not at Bama.
I mean,
you don't play that way.
No.
Except when we play Clemson, and we're not going to.
People have a lot of questions about what's going on there, but not this.
Yeah, except when we play Clemson, and we're still hurting about that. So, do you think that these folks will be prosecuted to the extent of law? I mean, these Hollywood actors. I mean, there's some big name folks that are associated with it. We keep seeing reruns of Full House or Fuller House or all these things. It's just kind of wild.
I don't know. I think they could go one of two ways. They either can, go ahead and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law and kind of make an example of them. If they don't, then there's going to be the whole thing is going to come up again of, well, did your money, was your money able to, and your celebrity and your fame able to buy you this too? That's one of the things that we hear a lot. So,
well, why don't they kick these kids out of school too? Well, and here's the other one: these kids should be kicked out of school.
That's one of the things that they're looking at. I mean, some of these education officials and schools are looking into this and taking their own actions.
Or like they did in our day, they take you out in the hall and give you the swats. You probably never got the swats in the hall.
I heard about it. I mean, you can tell me about your experience with it.
Very much so, to this day. Miller Hills Elementary School, Warner Robins, Georgia. Charlie Harper. Come on, Kevin. You know what? Yes, sir.
Wow.
A lot of swats in the South.
That was a very vivid memory.
He was a good man, still is probably. Hope he's still alive. So what a wonderful young man that made my sixth grade experience worth remembering. Fifth and sixth grade. So, see, kids, people can make a difference. Mm-hmm. Corporal punishment, not such a bad thing. I don't even have to look at your face. Tanya J. Powers, look what it did for me, everybody.
I didn't say that.
See, this is our bond. I don't even have, you don't have to say anything anymore. I can say what you're saying.
No, I don't.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
Sure, anytime.
Thank you. All right, Tanya J. Powers joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning. You need a laugh, but I think a lot of our problems in America today, both for adults and kids, could be solved if we bring back the old corporal punishment. Of course, that would never happen in the world we live in today. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So, Joe Biden's running for president. Joe Biden is a white guy. Joe Biden is an old white guy. Uh-oh, Joe. Joe, that's not good. when you have like when you have Chuck Todd talking to Beto O'Rourke, saying, hey, Beto, you're a white guy. Your party doesn't want a white guy. Again, institutional racism. Jordan Peele, the big time movie producer. If you didn't hear earlier, we were talking about this. Guy was saying, look, I don't want a white lead. I don't want a white male lead. I've seen that movie before. You don't even have to say imagine if somebody said that about a minority lead, right? It breaks my heart to talk about these things, but this is the world we live in today, the world perpetrated by the media, and we've got to respond to them. So here you have Joe Biden, serious Joe Biden. Joe Biden, at 76 years old, going to run for president. Now, there are a lot of people in their 70s that are working. Now, Ray Amaya, I don't even have to look at you to say this to you, but I know you and for me that if we were in our 70s and we didn't have to work, we wouldn't be applying for a job to work. With all due respect for sanity, Smoking Joe, why would you want to work if you got more money than you know what to do with? You want to be look at how it's aged Trump. Look at how it's aged Obama. It aged President Bush. Look at all the follicles he lost in his hair, in his head. Hair follicles. You know what I'm saying. Okay, here we go. Joseph Biden on why it's bad to be a white guy. And now this is hypocrisy. He's speaking out. Now these aren't my words, so we're going to protect ourselves. Quote unquote, the white man's culture. The white man's culture. Okay. Watch out, everybody. Here comes the white man's culture.
Dude. Notable woman, Anita Hill, professor, showed the courage of a lifetime, talking about her experience being harassed by Clarence Thomas. We knew a lot less about the extent of harassment back then, over 30 years ago. But she paid a terrible price. She was abused through the hearing. She was taken advantage of. Her reputation was attacked. I wish I could have done something. I opposed Clarence Thomas' nomination. I voted against him. But I also realized...
Now, before we get going, she was questioned in the hearings. You know, it's funny how all the libs use these words that trigger things. She was abused. I wish I could. Biden, you were asking some of the tough questions. You were in cahoots. By the way, just because somebody makes an allegation without substantiation, without additional proof, does not mean that they're true. Now, which is worse? Soon-to-be candidate Biden, Anita Hill making stuff up, which the Senate found, or her being a victim by being questioned? Anita Hill volunteered to derail the candidacy of Justice Thomas. And until Thomas pulled the old, hey, this is nothing but a high-tech lynching, then they backed off. Right? Of course, if you're Harvey Weinstein, if you're Les Moonves, you get a lot more benefit of the doubt. Right, Biden?
There was a real and perceived problem the committee faced. There were a bunch of white guys. No, I mean this sincerely. A bunch of white guys hearing this testimony.
Did you hear that at 580-5436? 580-KIDO. The problem wasn't that Anita Hill couldn't prove her case. An African-American woman making allegations against an African-American male, but it was a bunch of white guys that were there. It was the white guys that were, and dude, Joe Biden's going to run for president at the age of what, 77? He's 76 now. So if he got elected, 77, he would make the Gipper seem spry.
In the Senate Judiciary Committee. So when Anita Hill came to testify, she faced a committee that didn't fully understand what the hell it was all about. To this day, I regret I couldn't come up with a way to get her the kind of hearing she deserved, given the courage she showed by reaching out to us. The hearing she deserved was a hearing where she was respected, where the tone of the questioning was not hostile and insulting, where the fact that she stepped forward was recognized as an act of courage in and of itself. Because let's face it, back in 1991, it took a lot of courage to take on a man who was so much a part of the establishment and the power structure. I realize I get a little too passionate about this sometimes, but we all have an obligation to do nothing less than change the culture in this country. That's just the laws. We change the laws. Change the culture. The culture.
So what he's saying is change the white man's culture. Well, you can ask Jussie Smollett about changing the culture. I think he changed the culture.
You all know what the phrase rule of thumb means?
Okay, now, please pay attention. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. This is where Biden compares something that happened, I don't know, 200, 300, 500 years ago to today. He's talking about the rule of thumb. We've all heard of the rule of thumb. Well, this is where Joe Biden really reaches a new level of pandering to the Democratic base. You notice he's not talking about the exorbitant cost of Obamacare, about his record during the Obama regime. It's projection. You have people at work that do this. You have people at home. Projection, where you project your own insecurities, your own inadequacies onto others. Joe?
Where it's derived from? In English common law, not codification law, common law. Back in the late 1300s, so many women were dying at the hands of their husbands because they were a chattel, just like the cattle or the sheep, that the court of common law decided they had to do something about the extent of the death. So you know what they said? No man has a right to chastise his woman with a rod thicker than the circumference of his thumb. This is English jurisprudential culture. A white man's culture.
A white man's culture. Thank you, former President Obama, and your post-racial America. Here is your running mate, desperate at the age in his soon-to-be late 70s, wanting to run for an office once again that he's failed at, 2 or 3 times? He was derailed in 88 because of the plagiarism charges. Was it 88 or 92? Regardless. Joe Biden. Could you imagine any other ethnicity saying that about its own culture?
It's got to change.
So he's going back to something that happened in the 1300s. Did they have the internet in the 1300s? Did they have, they spoke a different way, but this is what they have. This is their glimpse of the future. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Coming up next hour, we're going to talk to our friends from Judicial Watch, and Sean scores a big one last night, the first post-Mueller interview with Donald Trump. You'll hear those excerpts as well. And as always, we urge you to join us. 580-5436. You're listening to Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio.